This is, and not a guilty, not a condemnation. And I am very strict on that. Condemnation doesn't help me. It doesn't help most women. I have to be convicted. And the conviction was not to condemn, oh, you're bad. You're eating a whole bag of cookies. You ate more than two. The conviction was, okay, what are you doing? Let's check and make sure everything's okay with you. Do you need to take care of something? Do you need to walk away? That's how I do this. This is part of that plan.
I'm your host, Kim Hines, and welcome to the Emotional Eats podcast. I'm on a mission to show you that what you consume, not just the food, affects your entire life. Midlife is different. Let's dig into the real reasons why you eat when you're not hungry and why you're not feeling well. My guests and I are going to give you doable solutions and help you let go of perfectionism, food rules, and stress to make changes that will last a lifetime. If you're ready to ditch old school diet culture and nourish your entire life, this is the show for you. Welcome to episode 10. I introduce you to my friend and former colleague, Trish Hunter. She's a mental health counselor, and she shares a really cool intersection of spirituality, mental health, and eating. She has a great story and also shares the profound impact of her mom's passing on her own health. We explore the generational issues that often affect women in their midlife years that also shape their physical and mental well-being. Trish's philosophy is really powerful. You can have spirituality, professional, mental health support, and also nourish your body through healthy eating. She also shares with us how she maintains her own well-being and guides everyone to break free from feelings of condemnation, shame, and guilt associated around food. Throughout the episode, Trish shares really great quotes, and one of them is, "If I don't learn how to eat to live, I'm going to die eating." Join us as we explore so many strategies to gain control over your thoughts and emotions, uncovering the power within yourself to heal your relationship with food, and also understanding your emotions around food. And we will empower you to make positive changes. Join us for this enlightening conversation and episode that will inspire you to stop sabotaging yourself, change your thoughts, and embrace a life of nourishment and self-acceptance. Let us know what you think and enjoy the episode. Hi, Trish. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I am so excited to have you here because you are not only a longtime friend of mine, but you have been in education, as I was back in my past. And that's how I met you. I would run into you in the hallways and get that positive burst of energy from you. But also, you are a licensed mental health counselor. So I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited about being here.
Well, I know that you are very passionate about a lot of different things, and we're going to get into some of that today. When we have a purpose and we feel passionate about helping other people, there's a lot of times a story behind that. So I'd love to hear, what's your story leading up to becoming a mental health counselor?
Oh, that's a great question. I love answering it. Well, I will tell you, I had parents. My mother was in nursing and my father was an educator. And they were very positive people. And they were very religious as well. And so they were very positive people, well-rounded. And so I just remember looking at my father and thinking, gosh, I want to be so much like you. I would see how he would interact with people and how people would be drawn to him and how he just would encourage. And he was a speaker and he was a minister and he was all these things. So I just remember thinking when I graduated from high school that I was going to be a teacher. And so when I graduated from high school, I started out with a bachelor's in elementary education. I received from Florida A&M. And so it was like my dad was high school, but I did elementary. It was something about those little ones and being able to, mold their little minds and get in there and change their little hearts and build them up and encourage them. So it started there with the elementary. Then I went from elementary. I did elementary for 11 years. Almost 12. And then I was thinking to myself, oh, well, I love elementary, but it's something about counseling and helping and caring, that profession. And so I was thinking about what I wanted to do when I went back for my master's degree, and I went back for my master's degree in counseling and education at Florida A&M as well. So I became a school counselor. At that time, guidance counselors. We did more guidance than school. And so I did that. That's when I moved to Clay County from Tallahassee. I was in Tallahassee that whole time. Moved to Clay County as a school counselor, guidance counselor at that time. And I was a counselor for almost 7 years. And then I was blessed with a young woman. I'm not sure. I hope I can say her name. She would just love it. Donna Weathington. I don't know if you remember Donna.
Yes.
Donna's the one who came to me one time. She said, Trish, have you ever thought about mental health? And it was so ironic because I had been thinking about it, mainly because my son started having some mental health issues after his dad and I divorced. And so it was me always trying to figure out what I could do to help him. And when she posed that question to me, I felt like that was a nudge from God to go back and complete that. So at that time, she had a position where it was under a grant with the Department of Education, DOD, DODEA, where it was a counseling position to help with military families and their children. And so Donna had, interviewed and everything. And so she hired me for that before I even went back to get registered for mental health. She said, Trish, you just got it. You just got that passion for it. You just want help. So anyway, she got me in there. I was a military, I guess you can say military families counselor at that time, but I was registered, but I was still a mental health counselor. So I did that for about 6 years, about 6. And then when the grant ran out, they did some revamping in the county here at Clay County Schools, and they had positions for a mental health counselor. And then they started opening more and more. So I was the first mental health counselor here in Clay County.
That's great. I did not know that.
Working that position, yes. And so I've been doing that ever since. And so that has been now 9 years. So if you add all of that together, you would get around 33 years. And so it was started, like I said, with a nudge in my heart. And it was like, I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to care about people. I always cared about the wellness of people. And look at here. Here I am, a mental health counselor.
Yes. And the connection is amazing because we talk about mental and physical health and how the connection comes together. And those kids that you've worked with are so blessed. And now you're helping in private practice too. So there's so many people that you can reach now. Yes. And I love your philosophies. So I'm going to tell the listeners that not only are you an old friend of mine, so I know so much about you, but I see you online and you send these positive messages and some of them are about health.
Yes.
And we are, a lot of our listeners are women and they're in their midlife, their 40s, 50s, 60s. So they're dealing with a lot of things. And let's start with the mental health part of that. What are some of the challenges that women in this age range might be facing during this time in their lives?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, but fortunate for us because people like you have started talking about it. So we are breaking that stigma. Body image is one of the biggest. Now, along with body image comes mood, affect, depression, anxiety, body image, obesity, all of these things. And they're all complex, they're all complex. And it's something that affects all races and cultures. So when we think things that affect women in mental health, one of the biggest things is body image. And I'm so glad that you and I get to talk about it today, because a lot of times what we don't hear about the body image subject as far as connecting with mental health is what's happening on the inside of us. It's what's going on the inside. I even struggled with, dressing up this outside, wearing this mask when I was 240 pounds years ago. And I wore this mask coming out of a divorce to where it affected me so much. One of the most important things I remember is how it affected me and how I felt on the inside. I stopped caring about how I looked on the outside and I gained a lot of weight. And then all of the physical health issues came, which again affect your mental. So it's all connected.
It is so connected. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because when we work on just the outside, which is really what we're faced with in diet culture, is when we feel bad about ourselves, when we feel bad about our bodies, it seems like the first thing we turn to is the quickest fix. But it's also marketing, because marketing is playing off of your
Oh,
insecurity
yeah.
and your fear. So
Hmm.
how can women start to look at the inside and work on their mental health around that? And maybe
Okay.
you can share, is there something that may also even go back to the past or limiting beliefs on how they can work on this?
Well, you know what? This is one thing that I really found to be true. And I kind of have worked my way around this. I saw this. I saw this written, it's which years ago, just this plain, and it read just like this. I'm going to read it to you because it was a quote. It said, body image is a complex construct, and it's made up of beliefs, thoughts, perceptions, feelings, and behaviors. Then it says, the way we see ourselves and our bodies have an impact on our health, our mental health, and our relationships. So when you hear that, what do you think?
It just makes me think that we've spent the whole time looking at body image on the outside, that skinny makes us happy, when in
Right.
reality, it's everything that we're
It's,
feeling, all the constructs on the
it is.
inside.
It is. It is. And so, what we want to get to is what is a healthy body image for me? Because what works for you may not work for anyone else, and may not work for anyone else, and may not work for anyone else. Like I just told you all, at 240 pounds and feeling awful, I had to figure out, like, what is going on really? Is it just the divorce? Is it just And so when I saw that quote about the beliefs, your thoughts, your perception, all that is what really people can't see. That's what's happening on the inside. So that's, Kim, when I learned about me, that I have got to eat to live, because if I don't learn how to eat to live, I'm going to die eating.
Wow, that's
And
powerful.
so let me just say this, one of the things that changed my whole perspective about eating healthy, along with the weight gain, was my mother dying at 60 years old of everything. I mean, everything that the doctor could list, mommy had gone through it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that was 18, almost 19 years ago now. And I'm 55. I remember my sister and I sitting there, and I can share this, my family knows it. We're sitting there and we're looking at her death certificate, and we see what the cause of death was. And it was all these things. And some of the things that I won't mention were the things that went blah, 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 blah. Okay. And so she and I sat down that day, and that was a little bit after she passed away. We were going through paperwork and everything. She and I made a vow that we have got to change this, because we noticed that we were going down the same path. Now, a question that may come up, I'm gonna go ahead and answer it now. Childhood trauma,
Yes,
childhood
yes.
episodes, childhood crises. We watched our mother struggle with her weight. And so then we picked up some of her habits, some good ones, mostly, mostly not so good, but some good ones. And so then we had to realize it was like us sitting down deciding, where do we start with this? Because we want to eat to live, because we know we have to do that. We don't want to die eating. Okay.
Yes.
And so that was how we started with, where do I start from here? What do I do differently? So that is how I move right now. I don't want to get too ahead because I know you have questions, but my mantra right now, what I live by, my sister and I live by, is eating to live.
That's so good. You really touched upon something so important that we really forget. Generationally, we pull in so many things that our parents have already gone through, we absorb it. And it's not just the physical health, it's really also the traumas that even they have endured. And even, I think sometimes too, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like sometimes we forget that it's not just a big event trauma. It could be a divorce in a family. It could
Right,
be limiting beliefs. It could be the way someone spoke to
right,
you.
Mhm.
So those traumas, when you talk with women yourself, do you feel like sometimes that may hold people back until they understand it from actually making changes?
Yes. And you know what I hear from women, and even from myself, I can speak for myself. The struggle is, can I really do it? Is it too late?
Yes. Am
That's
I
a
too
big one I
old?
hear. Am I too old? Right. I hear that one more than anything. And then I also hear, me being an African American woman, is, that's why our culture did it. We're supposed to be thick. We're supposed to be a little healthy, those type things. So you struggle with all of that. Like, what is actually right? Until you become self aware of, like I said, what works for you. And that comes from digging. I mean, really digging, getting that information, and then making a plan that you can live with.
I love that. First, the digging. I love that you're mentioning that because we have spent so many years, many of us, looking at the diet plan, 20 to 30 years of looking at diets. And then the other part is, are you willing to go deeper to find out what are you really hungry for? What are you really needing? Because we use food to comfort. Thank you for mentioning the divorce and being really open about that, because the same thing happened to me. And I just want to share that parallel that when I went through that, I did not have my kids week on, week off. And the weeks that I did not have them were very lonely. It gave me too much time to think. That was when I became really a binge eater. And no one knew because I was a marathon runner. So I actually bounced. So I had a double-edged sword. I didn't have that, blaring alarm like, oh, your health is going under, even though it was. I just didn't know it. So I'm glad that you brought that up so people understand that it's real. It's okay.
Right.
Those things are real. It's just
They
how
are
we
real.
react to them.
Yeah. Yes. It's
So
the
tell
reaction.
me, yes. And I'd love to know more about eat to live. What does that really mean to you?
Okay. So, you know what? When people hear eat to live, even my sister was like, huh? What do you mean? It's so many layers. There's lots of layers to it. Okay. But the foundation that has to be laid is, people have to understand that when you say you eat to live, it's not you deciding, okay, I'm going on a very strict diet and I'm just going to have to remove a lot of things from what from my plate and what I can eat. You don't have choices. That's what people think the most, but it's not. Eating to live is, just like you and I just said, having a plan. I mean, a plan, a total plan. Now, you as a teacher, you can have been a teacher. You recognize what a plan is. It is, I want to have something written, something to go by, just in case things get hard. Because a lot of times we could walk into our classrooms and honestly, we didn't need a plan. We knew exactly what to do. But that plan keeps you organized, structured, and intentional. That's it. That's another one of my powerful words. And so when people learn that, when you become aware and you learn that about you and and the most important thing is a lifestyle change. What can I do for the rest of my life? That's why I didn't ever do well on binge diets, slim fast. Oh, I said the name. Sorry.
That's okay. We
Those
bring
type
them up.
diets. I, I could never, ever, those never worked because that wasn't going to work for a lifetime. What I had to do is come up with what is going to work for me after I start digging, finding out what affects me, how it affects me, how it affects my moods, my emotions, my thoughts. When I was able to figure those things out and get those before me, when it comes to eating now, I don't have binge time. Now, listen, let me just tell you something. This is so funny. I've learned so much about myself that even if I did have a time what we call binge, and binge probably to me is, instead of eating, and I don't even have numbers, but I just know from my plan what I can. So instead of eating a whole package of chocolate chip cookies, I love chocolate chip cookies. So in my mind, in my plan, in my lifestyle plan, when I eat cookies, I eat one or two at a time. So the other night, I can't remember, I was doing something, doing a paper. I'm writing a book. I have to tell you about that too. But anyway, writing the book. And man, I kept wanting to go back and eat those chocolate chip cookies because it was just there and it was comforting me. Okay, that's what comfort food does.
Exactly.
And I'm going to tell you what happened on the inside of me is, this is where I'm going with the plan. I had a jerk in my soul. My soul to me is your mind, your will, and your emotions. I had a jerk in my soul. Like, what are you doing? This is, and not a guilty, not a condemnation. And I am very strict on that. Condemnation doesn't help me. It doesn't help most women. I have to be convicted. And the conviction was not to condemn, oh, you're bad. You're eating a whole bag of cookies. You ate more than two. The conviction was, okay, what are you doing? Let's check and make sure everything's okay with you. Do you need to take care of something? Do you need to walk away? That's how I do this. This is part of that plan. And that was a conviction, like, Trish, this is not good for you. Why are you doing that? What's going on? Do we need to take care of something else that's going on with you? I went, I took them, and I put away. That's what I mean when I said I did a bend. And guess what? After I took care of it and I took care of myself, I was able to put those away. No guilt, no shame, no judgment. When I could get rid of, and that's a part of the self-awareness, when I can get rid of the guilt, the shame, and the judgment, it's when I have learned to eat to live. So guess what? I didn't worry about that. I ate 8 chocolate chip cookies in one setting. I couldn't do that because if I know that if I do, that is setting me back. No, that's not what God wants for me. He wants me to continually to move forward. So that's why I get convicted. So I put those cookies away. Now, like I told you, I love chocolate chip cookies. I can probably eat one a day. Ever since then, not with condemnation, I haven't had one. It's been over a week. But when I want to go back and get one, you see what I'm saying? That judgment, that guilt, and that shame, when you learn that as part of your plan for eating to live, when you really get that down into your mind, your will, your soul, your mind, your will, and your emotions, that is the change that takes place to where now I eat to live. Now, me being an African American woman in a size 12 with a I can't remember what my waist is. I hadn't weighed in a while. Guess what? I am just so happy. I used to need a number. I just need to get to a 10. I need an 8. I used to be, I had to stop doing that because it was condemning me. It wasn't helping me. It was helping me to judge, make myself feel shameful, devalue me, body shaming, all those things that come out of that. I stopped doing it. It's like, you know what, Trish? How do you feel? How do you feel emotionally? How do you feel physically? How do you feel mentally? And I feel great. I feel like I'm thriving through this thing. That's what I had to get to. I'm sorry. I can go on.
I love it. I really wish the listeners could see you. And if this makes it to YouTube, this is exciting. This is what we talk about. This is exciting. And I have to tell you, the one thing that I always go back to with clients and the listeners is the perfection is not required
at all.
Yes, it is not required at all. And that's a diet. And that's why every diet that we've ever gone on has been a failure to us. We're not failing. It's the diet.
Right. We're not failing. It's the diet. That's
and
right.
In your words, no condemnation. So having that curiosity over the condemnation is what saved you from going further. And I love that. No shame and guilt, because women, we're really good at that. We're really good at judging ourselves, judging our behaviors, and then blaming ourselves for that. And the cycle continues. We can't stop that cycle.
When we stop that cycle. Yeah.
That intentional eat to live. The conversation you had with yourself about the cookies is amazing, because there are so many things that are happening when we're just eating. A cookie or two is great. This is life. We're going to love life. We're going to have a cookie. We're going to have, some people have their glass of wine. Some people have dessert on date night. Whatever it is, that is okay.
Yes.
But when we're eating, and like you said, what's going on? Is it procrastination? Is it because I have to do the work? Is it because I'm mindless? Whatever it is, I love that we ask those questions, and thank you for sharing your real, true experience with it. That is really powerful. The other thing that I love that I want to just highlight that you said and just kind of restate this is when you talk about the size, we are a very number obsessed society. And we also feel like we should always be what we were at some point in our lives, or this number on the scale, the number in the clothes. Everything is based on an extrinsic property
Yes.
out there
Yeah.
instead of the internal part of us. And yes, and you just said, how do I feel? How do I feel inside? So if you're talking to a woman and you're hearing this conversation from them and they're talking about body image and size and they have this goal weight, perhaps, how do you get them to shift
Yeah.
into the internal? What do you have to do to work with that?
Well, it's almost like what I just shared with you about the soul. I learned this from my pastor years ago, and I've just kind of stayed with it because it's set right here in my heart, and I can use it for everything. So when we're talking about our soul, our mind, our will, and our emotions, it's together. That's what my soul is. And so when I'm talking to women, and well, I try to use examples of which, like you asked, what would I say to someone else? It was, I start with digging deep. This is my terminology. Okay, let's dig deep. What do you think some of the triggers are as far as what you eat, why you don't eat, why you want to look a certain, be a certain size, be a certain shape, blah, blah, blah. And so what I get from women are, I never thought about that because you don't. It's like, so what I meant by that, now, did you miss what I just said? They never thought about it. Start with your thoughts. We have to start with our thoughts. And a lot of times, you know how I've helped women and I've even helped myself. And I've just recently got back to this journaling. I've asked women to let's pay attention to your thoughts. And I asked them questions. Those questions? Why do you feel like you want to be the size 10? Are you what about it makes you feel good about it? Why do you pick that? So I give them certain questions about their image of their body and their self-image, and we start logging our thoughts about it. So I'm gonna try to give you an example. So one lady that I recently started working with, I just started working with her. Her whole thing is, okay, and I don't give names, so nobody would know this, but she had bariatric surgery years ago. She gained all of the weight back, almost all of it, maybe a little bit more. And when she did, she got so depressed. She had some marital issues, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to get into too much of it. And she honestly was she felt like she was at the end of her life. She didn't know where else to go. She felt like she had lost everything. She had lost control. Here we go. This is going to all make sense. And so when she's telling me this, we're digging deep. And when she kept saying that, I feel like I have no control over this. And I should be able to, I don't know, how did I spend all this money? So she kept using that word control. She kept talking about her thoughts. So what we started to do is, as we start digging, I started telling her some things that I noticed and everything. I said, you know what, we're going to start doing a thought log. What are your thoughts about you? What are your thoughts about life? What are your thoughts about? Because all that it comes into a big center. And then we all brought it back together with food and what she could control. Now, what the biggest picture was, Kim, and this should answer your question, she felt like she had lost control of so many things that she could not gather herself to gain control again. She had never paid attention to her thoughts because I told her, and I reminded her, and this is true too, a thought is a seed. It's like when you plant cucumbers, you plant cucumbers, cucumbers are going to come up. But if you have all types of seed going on here, it's like, I really don't know, oh gosh, you pour them out, and then you just splash them out there, you have no idea what you're going to get. That goes back to a plan. So we started logging her thoughts about life, food, relationships, finances, a whole lot of things. So of course I have to bring those in, but the main thing we're talking about is eating. Kim, when she figured out how she could gain that control back by controlling her thoughts, but she had to be aware of, she said, I had never heard anybody tell me or give me that advice to think about, what are you thinking? How's it? And how she thought about herself and how she thought about eating, how she thought about her finding. This woman, I've only been seeing her now probably about 2 months. She's back to losing weight because she's eating to live now. She's gotten her finances under control. Her credit score has gone up. She's feeling good now. Watch this, from the inside out. You know why? Because she's aware now of that she has to have a plan for her life. Before she didn't. She had lost control. She felt like she couldn't gain it back. Now that she's feeling like she has control again, she is living. I would love to have her come on, or we can talk that. Come on later on. She still got a long way to go, but when I
Yes,
say
that's
she is
powerful.
amazing, think about that. Changing your thoughts. It's the CBT, really. Changing your thoughts will change your behavior, but it's
It
got to
really
be.
does.
Here's my magic word. It's got to be intentional. It's got to be intentionally. You got to want to do it and stick with it. And remember the part about not being condemned. So when you mess up, it didn't go right. Don't convict. Don't condemn. Convict and keep it moving. I
It's
hope I
so
answered your
true.
question.
Yes, it is so true. The awareness leading to the thoughts, and then knowing that your thoughts can change. It's powerful because when we feel so out of control, it's not just with food. It's not
Exactly.
just with relationships. It's not
It's
just
right.
with finances,
It's a cluster of things.
all of it. But I like how you have it separated out in the journaling. And journaling is very powerful. I think women underestimate it. And it's
Yes.
also, we always say, I'm so busy, I can't do it. But when we don't see our own thoughts on paper
Right.
or even spoken out, some of my
That's right.
clients will say it into their voice memo on their
That's right.
phone,
I love it.
listen
Yes.
to it back because
Uh-huh.
they don't want to take the time to write it down. But then you also can see what is the truth in those thoughts.
That's
And
right.
you are sharing with us the truth is the inside.
The
Is
inside.
no condemnation. I love that. I'd love to go back to one other point that you made that was so good. You talked about briefly how food would affect your mood, and you were kind of keeping an eye on what made you feel good, what makes you not feel so good. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that connection between food and our mood, because our mental health, we know now the research between our gut and our brain is
Yes.
powerful. Those
Yes.
neurotransmitters are
Right.
working all the
Yes.
time. What are
Mhm.
your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so when I use that statement about the thoughts, food and mood, it is, if you be honest with yourself physically, there are some foods that you know yourself that when you eat, they don't make you feel the best. Now you may like them, but they're not
Yes.
anything that, it's like
Peanut butter.
oh, really? Peanut butter?
My favorite, but I'm not supposed to have it.
Oh my, that is tough. That's one of my favorite things to eat. So when you recognize, when you're going back and you are exploring your feelings about food, life, so on and so forth, when you start jotting it down, like you said, and writing, you start noticing, okay, when I am the most fatigued, it's when I eat after 8, or when I skip breakfast. When I don't get enough sleep, or I eat late, going to sleep, I don't sleep well. So the next day, I'm cranky. That's where I'm going. So when you write that down and you start looking at it, it's like, because my husband, I told him the other night, I said, I think you get a little aggravated that I can rest. I can rest. I know lifestyle, by 10 o'clock, I'm in the bed. If I can get in there by 9:30, I'm in the bed and I am falling asleep. I get up at 6 every single day. I rest well. Now, when I don't rest well, here we go again with the conviction. When I don't rest well, here it is with the mood. When I don't rest well, or I get up a little cranky, or I'm a little slow to move, or the next morning, I go back and I think, okay, and sometimes I even jot down, what did I do yesterday? Now, mainly food, but other things too. Like, what did I watch on TV? What am I putting into my What am I putting into my soul, my mind, my will, and emotion? What did I eat for my soul, my mind, my will, and my emotions? And I break it down. And when you learn the coordination between those two, then you start paying more attention to that and your feelings. And I am a person that I use affirmations and scriptures a lot to go with mood, food, everything in my life, to be honest. But when you start doing that and you recognize immediately, like I said, without condemnation, with the conviction, you're like, oh, okay, tomorrow or later tonight, I'm just going to make that change and I keep it moving. I just don't. We can't. We can, but it does us no good. It doesn't do us any good for us to dwell on what has happened. Make the changes and keep it moving. That's it.
So good. Okay. This is one of my favorite things that you talk about is what we consume, not just food,
Yes.
affects how we are in the day.
Mhm.
So it is social media, it's TV, it's news, it's toxic people, it's
Yes.
everything. It's not just the food. And I also appreciate, again, we just keep bringing in the no condemnation. We're just curious what happened, because I can tell you when I don't have a good night's sleep, sugar is on my mind the whole next day. That's
Exactly.
just how our bodies are.
That's how
And
they
we
react.
know that we want that energy.
Yes.
Or if we pack our schedule way too tight,
Yes.
we are thinking about something that's going to make us feel good.
That's right.
Thank you so much.
Yes, that has changed my life too. Now, what I will say too, I'm not a caffeine drinker. Don't drink sodas. I don't drink coffee, but I love teas. So, and I love chocolate. So, sometime just recently as well, and when I say just recent, it could be like a couple weeks ago. It really could be a month ago. It could just last week though. Out of nowhere, it seemed. See, that's the thing. It didn't come from nowhere, but out of nowhere it seemed. And it's just some of the things you just named. It was stress. It was caseload, things going on with my kids, things going, So I had to stop then and think about those things. But I wanted a piece of chocolate so bad. Now, I love my husband so much. And he's the kind of guy, he'll get me anything. I mean, all about, babe, can we sell the house and go buy a yard and live on? Oh, yeah, sure. He's that kind of guy. So when I mentioned to him about chocolate, he's so happy to go get it because he's always that person. He wants to provide for me. He wants to take care of me. So I don't ask him anymore. I don't ask him anymore without being very detailed because he just goes overboard. I wanted a piece of chocolate. I almost started to call him and ask him, babe, could you stop by and get me a piece of chocolate? I thought about it. I said, no, my sister-in-law is living with us now. She has chocolate. I just needed a little piece. I didn't need the big piece that he was going to bring me. And I probably would have eaten it in pieces, not the whole time. But I knew I just wasn't in a good place. That's another thing. You have to recognize where you are. Like you just said, if you've had one of those days where things have been piled on you and you already know that you're having a hard time, you're struggling mentally or physically, you have to recognize that. Am I in a good place to handle this today? No, I'm not. And that's another thing I've learned. So I went to her, got me a little piece of chocolate. Man, that chocolate, tastes like a gold piece of chocolate that was worth $1 million. But guess what? It satisfied me because I made sure for myself, okay, Trish, what is actually going on? Why do you need the chocolate? I said, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's something I'm missing or something I missed, but I just would like a little piece. I didn't want a big, and I got that piece of chocolate as a York's peppermint patty. One of those little ones.
Good.
Put it in my mouth. Satisfied. Then I can say to myself, okay, that satisfied you. You don't need anything else. Now continue to do what you need or let go of something today that you can put off to tomorrow. Sometimes you have to have those conversations with yourself too.
That is really important.
But
and it's funny.
learning.
It's a learning experience.
Mhm.
Exactly.
It
This is not perfection. We
It's
don't always
not.
have to get it right the first
It's
time.
not. It's
That's
not.
why diets fail, because we fall off of it and we don't
Yep.
come right
And we
back
feel
the
like we're
next
the failure.
day.
We feel
Yeah, there's
defeated.
no curiosity about it.
No.
And it's funny, my husband will do the same thing. He'll grab the hugest Cadbury bar for me, and I really need a piece because I will eat the whole bar or a half a
Right.
bar.
I will.
But I love what you said. You tasted it, and it was really so satisfying.
And I told myself too. I had a conversation with
Yes,
myself.
you
Know what I
told
mean?
yourself.
I didn't take advantage. I didn't take advantage of the fact that, okay, you're doing this. I need for my body to understand what I'm doing. A lot of times my sister laughed at me because I told my body, and she goes, you talk to your body a whole lot. I told my body, I told my mind, I talked to all of it. And so I've learned to do that. Now, people may think I'm crazy, but it works.
It works, but that's you. That's your body. We have to talk to ourselves. So you just found the perfect segue. Let's talk about positive versus negative self-talk and self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so The reason, I guess, why this one right here that you're asking me is so important and I can elaborate so well is because, and I go back to that time with the divorce because that's when I remember just the eye opening is the talk that I was having with myself. I was self blaming. I was body devaluing. I was, what's that other thing I wrote down? A matter of fact, I got to tell you about this was a research that was done. My coping strategies I wasn't living, and I wasn't living up to my mental health, understanding my mental health. So, like you said, all the things you brought in today, like how does it affect my mental health? The self image, my self image. Who am I from the inside out? When I was feeling the lowest, guess what I did? I talked negatively. Now, if you think about it, and be honest with yourself, has that ever helped you feel better to talk negatively about yourself? Speak negative
Absolutely
to
not.
yourself? No, it honestly makes you feel worse. So when I got that understanding, I'm like, wait a minute, that's not working the way I needed to work. Because when we get upset with ourselves or angry or we're going through things, we have to monitor what comes out of our mouth because what comes out of our mouth is what we believe. So I said, you know what, I'm turning this. And I used not to be one that was big on positive self talk. I really was. I was like, you know what? Even as a therapist, I was like, oh, you know, I hear that all the time. But listen to this. Have you ever heard it like this? Self talk. We all have self talk, but the positive self talk is what changes our lives. So think about self talk. Those are the conversations we have with ourselves all the time. The thoughts that we just let happen. So if I'm allowing some thoughts to happen, and the negative ones aren't making me feel any better, let me try using these positive ones. So when I say, I just changed this, I have positive affirmations, scriptures, and things written in a lot of places in my life, in my office here, in my bedroom, on my mirror. I started substituting. I started sharing the negative, even when I felt fat, overweight, obese, not feeling well. Nobody likes me. I'm obsessed over the fact that when I stopped doing that and started, watch this. Let me tell you this. Let me give you one. This is one of my favorites right here. When I started using affirmations like this changed my life for good. I'm telling you. And these are ones that are specifically for women. Listen to this one. Feeling beautiful has nothing to do with what you look like. Now, can you express that and feel the same way about your body if you're doing that 2 and 3 times a day and making changes from, oh my gosh, I don't feel beautiful. Oh my gosh, I don't. You see what I'm saying? Making that adjustment to
That is
changing those
rich.
words, your vocabulary. And that is Emma Watson. I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Emma Watson is, but she's an author and I think she's an actress. But I love Emma Watson. She's definitely a good author. This is another one. To be beautiful means to be yourself. Mm. You don't need to be accepted by others. You need to accept yourself. So that's saying, okay, guess what? If I don't think I'm beautiful, nobody else is going to. So what can I do to help me feel beautiful? You see what I'm saying? So when I learned how to make those adjustments from that negative self-talk to the positive self-talk, and let me just tell you, and I have to be honest, and I love this. I love this podcast because I'm able to be transparent. There are days where I think I'm a very attractive woman. But you know what? This very attractive woman that I hear people say, you get that when people say to me, oh, you're so beautiful, or you, and I'll say, thank you. They say, but you get that all the time. I'll respond like this. This is good. I said, yes, I do get it quite often. But you know what the best thing about it is? I actually feel like it from the inside out. It's a two-parter. It's a
It
two-parter. So
is.
some days I look in the mirror, I put on something or whatever, whatever my mood is for whatever reason. Sometimes I don't feel beautiful. Here we go again. But not to the condemnation. It's like, okay, just because I'm having one bad day of not feeling how I usually feel doesn't mean I'm that. So I have to watch my words.
Yes. It doesn't mean you are that. And it's
Doesn't
so
mean I'm that.
powerful. What you said, what comes out of our mouth is what we believe. Our body feels it. Our
It
body
feels it.
knows we're saying it. You know,
Yes.
it's funny. It also with people telling you you're beautiful, the wonderful thing that you could say also is, yes, I hear that all the time because I say it to myself daily.
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna have to write that down. I like that. I do. I hear it from
Yes.
myself more than anything. I have to.
Yes,
I
so
have to.
important.
Oh, I
You
love
know,
that.
one of the things that we connect on deeply that I really appreciate is the spirituality part of health and feeling good about ourselves and our body image. Can you share with me some of your kind of grounding principles as far as bringing faith into this process of, loving ourselves from the inside out, giving ourselves the health and self-care and the things that we need, not just for, longevity and health span, but just to live life for our purpose.
Yes, yes. What I have decided and what I write, and I'll be happy to share this with you too, Kim. I can email it to you and you can
Perfect.
share however you want. But this is my mantra, my commitment to love myself. So, what I want to do with that and what I wanted to do with that is make sure I include everything, not just my body image, just, being happy in relationships, being financially stable, being happy on your job, those things. So, I wanted it to be a big picture. I wanted to cover all that. So, when I think of my commitment to love myself, I think of it like this. When your body and mind reacts to emotions, these are some things that you can do, okay, to line it back up, to get yourself back on track. If you feel like you're off that path, these are some things. And this is exactly what I use. So here it is. I'm going to read it off because I did list them for you. Remind yourself that you are a believer. This is for me now. And you've been promised by God, our Father, that you can do all things through Him who strengthens you.
Yes.
Another one is tell yourself often that you're doing your best and that you're working to be better at controlling these emotions that don't help me live my best life.
So good.
When your nerves get the best of you, because sometimes they do, nerves, mood, whatever, it doesn't mean there is anything wrong with you. Sometimes the enemy wants you to feel defeated. He is a liar and there is no truth in him. So we don't believe anything that is against what God has told us about ourselves. He wants us at our best. He wants us well-rounded. He wants us to be able to control the emotions. I told somebody the other day, Kim, and it's the truth. I love when the Lord showed this to me. I hate for people to say sometimes to people who are upset, stop crying, don't cry. What I realize though is that they don't understand. I feel like if God gave us these emotions, we're supposed to be using them, but we have to use them wisely and in a healthy manner. So why did He give me tears if I wasn't supposed to cry? But you see what I mean? Why did
Yes.
He give me laughing? Why did He? And even when sadness comes, I feel like He wants us to feel that too. A lot of times we get stuck in not wanting to feel feelings, but the most important thing you can do in any situation, controlling your emotions, is learning how to feel those emotions. That's how you control them. And then give them their space and then keep it moving on with your schedule. That's a whole nother one, right? That's
That's
a whole nother
powerful.
podcast.
And that is, we may have to do a part 2 because
I
I
think we
think the
will.
feeling, yes, the feelings is really powerful
That's a good one.
because that's what we learn to do sometimes to grow up. And we have this kind of suck it up buttercup
Yeah.
thing where
Suck it
we
up.
stuff everything down, move on.
Yeah.
That's how the behaviors come out that we use to escape. And those are the behaviors
Exactly.
that we use, whether it's, food, alcohol, anything that helps us not feel the feelings. So that's
Exactly.
powerful.
It
So
is.
you have given us so much information today, but I have one last question for you before I tell everyone where we can find you. But I believe, like you do, that we have to nourish our entire lives. It is not just one thing. And you have shown today in such a beautiful way, it is everything that we can be working on. Do you have, for someone who's just starting out in this journey, 3 simple tips that you can share just to get them started
I do. Okay, so these are so important, and I'm so glad that you asked this. I was prepared for this because I get this often. So these tips will help women with how they view their bodies and their feelings about eating. Okay, so here we go. First step, you got to put a stop to the emotional eating, meaning you got to get an understanding of what that is. And how you do that is by identifying your personal triggers, like we talked about. Like what situations, places, or feelings that make you reach for comfort food or make you feel condemned about food. Emotional eating is always linked to the unpleasant feelings. But when we get a better understanding of what those triggers are, then we can move to number two. Here's number two. Once you identify those triggers, the next step is identifying healthier ways to feed your feelings. Because we just said, it's not just the eating, it's all of these things. But and when you get, oh my gosh, when you get a very good understanding and you are aware of all of those things that trigger those feelings, then we're ready to go to step three. Because when it comes to food, it connects with so many things. Last one, in order to stop the emotional eating, you have to find other ways to fulfill yourself emotionally. It is not enough to understand the cycle. It is not enough. And that's where, you heard me talk a lot about why am I feeling this way? What triggers? The journal, the thought journal, the food journal. When it comes to food, what are the feelings about this? When it comes to emotions, why do I feel this way? You're going to have alternatives to food or any other thing that is getting in the way of your emotions that you can turn to fulfill those emotional issues.
Yes. Those are amazing. Those three are great to get everyone started. It actually wraps up our whole show completely. It wraps up everything we talked about. Trish, you are such a gift and a treasure, and I'm so thankful that you were here to share, and your energy is just amazing. I know everyone's going to feel that and our energy with each other. And what I would love to know for the listeners is how can they find you? So if they're looking to get some more help with this, how can they find you?
They can find me I have my private practice. It's in Jacksonville, Florida. It's called Trish's Counseling Care, LLC. Is the name of it. It's where my motto is unraveling layers within, of course.
Yes.
And my number. This is a Google number, so it's fine. You can broadcast it. It's 904-592-9764. 904-592-9764.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And please know that those will also be in the show notes so that you can actually see them written down also. Trish, thank you so much. And to our listeners, nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today. I really appreciate you being here. If you resonated with this podcast, it would mean a lot to me if you'd be willing to follow or subscribe to the Emotional Eats podcast. Then you'll never miss an episode. Just go to the Emotional Eats show page on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner and click on it. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give me a 5-star rating and review, I would be so grateful. If you'd like to take a screenshot and share it on Instagram, just tag me at Kim Hines Health. I would love to hear your thoughts and let me know how I can support you. You can always DM me on Instagram, again, at Kim Hines Health. And just remember to nourish your life and give yourself grace today.